I'm Nintendo.
And I'm Sega. This is Console Wars! Whoa. Dude, I just had the weirdest dream.
Was it the Gary Busey one where he's like spoon feeding the mac and cheese?
No. Did you have that dream?
No.
So, what were you dreaming about?
It's pretty interesting, Auto Man. You see, I was right. Wait a minute. Auto Man?
They call them fingers, but I've never seen them fing.
Oh, I get it. I'm still dreaming.
No, I'm like totally here.
Yeah, this isn't a dream.
Oh, really? If this wasn't a dream, would I be able to do this?
Oh!
Yeah!
I just don't know why you'd stab yourself in the leg.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was the real world. I didn't know cartoon characters existed until today. No offense, Otto. I mean, why is he here again?
Well, my name is Otto, and I love to get blotto. Plus, I brought beer.
Well, hey, now that you're awake, we should show Otto our script.
Ooh, good idea. Well, which one, though? The Simpsons one or Willow 2? The Rise of Laura Dennett?
Simpsons, obviously. Where is it?
Yeah, we're over there, by that open breezy window. Oh no! The wind blew it out! I guess you could just print another one though, right?
I wrote it on a typewriter. That was the only copy. I'll get it.
Wait, what if I told you there's like a lazier way to get the script back?
Lazier, eh? I'm listening.
Instead of going outside, you could just go to sleep and then get the pages in your dreams.
Okay, no more beer for that man.
Wait, why does that sound familiar?
Cause it's what you have to do in that video game I'm in. Bart's Nightmare.
You can't just do what's in a video game, especially a bad one, like Bart's Nightmare.
Oh, that game was awful.
That was a terrible game. For the Sega Genesis.
What? No way. It is so much worse for the Super Nintendo.
That's it! Are we doing this?
Oakley dokley.
We're Simpsons Bart's Nightmare.
In the early 90s, there were a lot of Simpson games. There were plenty released in 16 bits. Krusty's Funhouse, Virtual Bart, and the Itchy and Scratchy game. The ones we're looking at today are The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis.
The games were developed by Sculpted Software and released in 1992. They're very similar, but there are some differences. Which game is worse? Let's find out.
These games look identical.
These games have the same looking characters, same looking levels, same looking character animations, and same looking cutscenes.
Some Simpson characters make an appearance here. The Simpson family in various forms, Itchy and Scratchy, Mr. Burns, Smithers, Barney, Apu, Nelson, Sherry and Terry, Principal Skinner, Jimbo, Dolphin, Kearney, and blink and you miss him, Auto Man, driving the bus.
There's a bunch of references to early Simpsons episodes as well, like Blinky, Jebediah's Head, and Smiling Joe Fission.
They're pretty similar looking games.
But mine definitely looks worse.
Look at this level on Super Nintendo. The floor and wall have a bit of a gradient effect going on. On Sega, the floor and wall are just one solid color. And on this level, the Super Nintendo game has shadows on the wall. On Sega, no shadows. Or check out this level. On Super Nintendo, whenever there's an explosion, the screen flashes a color. On Sega, no color flashes at all, just white.
That's it? Some colors and shadows? My game definitely looks worse.
Look at the clouds on this level in Sega. They're transparent and you can see through them easily. And on Super Nintendo, they're not transparent and don't look as cool as yours.
So, your clouds aren't transparent.
Nope.
Would you call them the opposite of transparent?
Sure.
Huh, that's funny, because one of the antonyms for transparent is cloudy. So you're telling me that your clouds look worse for being more cloudy?
Whatever. I have so many other reasons my game looks worse.
On this level, you see Maggie's pacifier moving on Sega. On Super Nintendo, the pacifier doesn't move. And when you almost die on Sega, the background goes white and almost looks like an unfinished coloring book. Cool effect. On Super Nintendo, not everything goes white and there's a haze on top and bottom. Side by side, I definitely think the effect looks cooler on Sega. Super Nintendo is just too blurry. And check out this cutscene. On Sega, you see the shadows on Bart for some depth. On Super Nintendo, no shadows, no depth.
So my game definitely looks worse.
I think you're forgetting the most important difference. Auto Man's bus.
On Super Nintendo, the bus has 5 windows. On Sega, the bus only has 4 windows.
So?
So, mine's definitely worse. I mean, is it even a bus at that point?
Yes, it's still a bus. Auto Man?
Right, I can do this. I got it! Do the wheels go round and round?
Yeah.
Good, because the wheels on the bus go round and round. So that's one thing. Okay. So how does the rest of that song go?
One less window is no big deal. It's closed, but my game's still missing more things.
With clouds that don't look as good, missing animations, no shadows, and blurry near-death screen, worst graphic goes to Super Nintendo.
Presentation on both games is identical, too.
Both games have the same intro, the same scenes between levels, and the same endings.
It might seem similar, but they're not exactly the same. Let's look at some real reasons that my presentation is worse. Let's look at that intro.
The intros are a little different. Super Nintendo uses Mode 7 for the title. Sega obviously doesn't. The transition to nighttime is also a little more subtle on Super Nintendo. It's fine on Sega, just not as good as Super Nintendo. And the way your window spins definitely looks better with Mode 7.
Our endings are different too.
Both games have Bart looking at his grade. On Super Nintendo, you actually see the paper move off screen. On Sega, no movement at all. You get just a little more on Super Nintendo.
Our games are even different in between levels.
When you go to a new level on Sega, they reuse the animation from the intro. My game just replaced the window with a door. The Super Nintendo, however, has an exclusive animation of a door opening.
What, that animation? That looks so dumb.
That's an amazing exclusive cutscene you have.
Amazing? It's just a door. It's not even the whole door. It's just corner of door.
Hey, I like doors. There's just like so many of them. You have your coach, your double-decker, your airport buses. Wait a minute. Those are buses. I guess what I like is buses. What the heck were we talking about?
Well, it's still a cutscene the Sega game doesn't have, and my presentation is definitely worse. Let's talk about those transitions.
The Super Nintendo game has so many transitions while the Sega game doesn't. On Super Nintendo, when you arrive on the main street level, you get a cool screen wipe. On Sega, nothing. Whenever you get a page on Super Nintendo, you get a pixelated transition. On Sega, again, nothing.
My presentation is clearly worse.
Since the Sega game has less effort in the intro, less effort in the ending, reuses animations, and has fewer transitions, worst presentation goes to Sega Genesis.
Music's not so bad.
Yeah, kinda get a Toe Jam and Earl vibe from it.
I mean, we do have all the same songs.
better than chilling to some good tunes, am I right?
Otto, what are you doing?
What does it look like? I'm trying to party, but I'm having trouble trying to pull anything. I think your piece needs cleaning.
That's not a piece, that's a guitar.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, you got any of those guitars that are like, double guitars? Well, let's make some more tunes then. You guys like Metallica? Master! Master!
Well, this game doesn't have many songs.
Most of the levels don't even have music.
There's no music on the Indiana Bart, Bloodstream, or Bartzilla levels.
Bartzilla just seems so empty without music.
True. But your music is better, because your music has things mine's missing.
Listen to this song on Super Nintendo. You hear a voice that sounds like Bart. Now listen to it on Sega. That same song has no Bart.
Let's talk about the voiceovers.
Why? I mean, we both have them and they sound fine in both games.
Uh-oh.
See?
Actually, I was gonna say that you have voiceovers that I don't.
When you beat this stage on Super Nintendo, you hear Bart say something.
Whoa!
On Sega, he doesn't say anything.
You also have a sound effect that I don't.
On Super Nintendo, after you beat this Bartzilla level, you hear a sound effect. And there's nothing on Sega.
Since my game is missing more, my sound is worse.
Since Sega's missing a voiceover, a sound effect, and Bart's voice in a song, worst sound goes to Sega Genesis.
Both these games have the same gameplay.
The object of the game is to retrieve the 8 pages of your report that flew out the window. You start out on this never-ending street. The purpose of being here is to find loose pages. Once you jump on the page, you get to choose between 2 different colored doors. This leads to the minigames. Beat a minigame, get a page.
The main focus of Bart's Nightmare is the minigames.
So let's go over each one.
Indiana Bart. You navigate through columns that move when you jump on them. If you jump on one too low, you die. Object of this game is to make it to the end.
Itchy and Scratchy. In this level, you're attacked by random household items and lots of Itchies and Scratchies. The object of this game is pretty much to kill everyone.
Bartzilla. Terrorize Springfield as a giant monster. Object of this game is to not die. This is a 2-parter as it leads to a building climb. You just need to make it to the top while avoiding falling objects and Momthra. Once at the top, beat King Homer and earn your page.
Bloodstream. This one's simple. You swim around and pump air into germs until they explode while trying not to get killed. The object is to get enough atoms that randomly appear, the Smilin' Joe fissions, to unlock your page.
The last minigame is Bart Man. This level is a shooter. You fly around as Bart Man, shooting various enemies and mini-bosses with your slingshot. The object is to make it to the end and beat the final boss.
And these games have problems.
Lots of them.
Let's get into this.
Wait.
The maze is just so difficult to navigate. The controls are clunky at best, you don't always go where you want, you have no life bar, so every misstep just kills you, and you're going to die. A lot. Sometimes you'll accidentally move too far, and die. Sometimes you'll misjudge a column, and die. Sometimes you'll get hit by Maggie, and die. Sometimes miss the Blue Devil with the whip, and die. It's so frustrating.
Bartzilla. It seems like a fun idea, but it's seriously flawed. It's almost impossible not to get hit here. Tanks are the worst. They always hit you. This one relies on luck more than anything. To make things worse, you have no life bar. You have no way of knowing if you're gonna die soon. Then you have this garbage building climb. It is so hard to get to the top. People are constantly trying to knock you down. It's so hard to actually avoid anything. Again, it's just luck. You have to hope that you don't get hit. Because if you see somebody throwing, there's no way you move fast enough. You will just fall, die, get mad. This is so frustrating.
Bloodstream. This one isn't so much frustrating as it is boring. Enemies are pretty easy to avoid, and sometimes you'll not see a bomb and instantly die. You're mostly just biding your time until the atoms arrive to unlock the page. There's no life bar here though, so that can be kind of annoying.
Itchy and scratchy. This one isn't too frustrating. You have lives and a life bar too. You go around killing things like in any video game. Like we said, the object is to kill all the enemies. It's a little weird though, because all the enemies come to you. You don't really have to do a lot of work. If you're lucky, you can just find one spot and hold the attack button. There is some cheapness though. Some attacks are instant death for you. If you get killed, it can be hard to get back on track. So you can get spammed with the same instant death attack over and over. So this one can go from very easy to incredibly frustrating in an instant.
And finally, Bart Man. This one stands out among the rest since this is the one minigame that actually feels like a game. You have lives and a life bar. You avoid enemies' attacks while trying to kill them. It requires effort. It actually requires strategy. It has enough going on to keep you engaged. It doesn't ever feel cheap. It feels like a real game. Why couldn't the other minigames be as good as this?
These are some bad minigames.
That's not even the worst part. Let's talk about the street.
The street is where you'll be spending most of your time. The whole point of the street is to find the pages to play the minigames. Problem is, it's not that easy. Lots of things are trying to kill you or slow you down.
Get life from the blue Z's floating around, or riding the skateboard long enough. The skateboard can also extend the life bar. For the most part, you're avoiding enemies while looking for pages on a street that never ends.
Now let's talk about why that section is so bad. Let's talk about that attacking.
You can attack enemies using gum or watermelon seeds, but they don't kill everyone and you can run out of them. This means that you'll mostly be using your jump attack. Now, conventional gaming wisdom tells you kill an enemy by jumping on them. Not this game. In this game, you have to jump over them completely without touching them. This is harder than it sounds. Bart just doesn't jump far enough, and you have to time your jump perfectly. If you don't, you'll lose life. And this will happen a lot. I mean, why? Why did they do this? Why didn't they just let you jump on enemies? Where did they come up with this stuff?
So, how are we gonna kill enemies on the street then?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I have been working on something so new, so fresh, it will reinvent gaming as we know it.
I like what I'm hearing. What is it, man? Don't keep us in suspense.
You know how in most games you jump on the enemy?
Yes, they've been doing that since forever.
Well, after many sleepless nights of research, I've come up with something that will make jumping on the enemy look like something from the Middle Ages. Instead of jumping on the enemies, you jump over the enemies.
Huh. Maybe I'm just a little confused, but I'm afraid people might complain if they accidentally jump onto them.
Oh, well, they might complain. Okay, well, those people complain and they are dumb and they will have ugly babies.
I don't get it either. You're not even touching them when you're jumping over them. Why are they dying?
This is the dream world. Jumping over makes perfect sense. Is the sky blue? Is it yellow? Is it zebra? You got to be creative.
Well, how's about running through them like Star Mario, or as I like to call him, Stario?
Or like Sonic, or as I like to call him, Sonic.
999! If you don't put my jumping move in the game, I will create 8 robot masters and enslave the entire civilization from a skull castle!
What do you think?
It's a Simpsons game. Even if it's bad, we're still gonna make money.
Yes, it is terribly bad, but I did buy that boat. Let's get it done!
And here's another dumb idea. How you get life.
The life bar is made up of Z's, like when you're sleeping. One way to get life is the blue Z's that are floating around. So to get life, all you have to do is touch the blue Z's, right? Wrong. Touching it does nothing. If you want life, you need to blow a bubble from your gum and get it to hit the Z. Why? Why did they have to do it this way? This has to be one of the worst ways to get life in any video game ever. It's so tedious, it's just so overly complicated, and you need to make sure that you're lined up with the Z perfectly, or you just wasted your gum. Not to mention, you can run out of gum. Not to mention, red Z's pop your gum. This is such a flawed mechanic. Why did they have to do it this way?
And there's plenty more on that street that's annoying.
See these trees in the foreground? They look cool as they sway in the wind, right? Wrong. All they do is block your vision. You can't see if an enemy is there. So many times you'll lose life because you didn't see an enemy behind a tree. You'll fall off your skateboard because you didn't see a manhole behind a tree. Or you'll turn into a frog because you didn't see Lisa behind the tree. I mean, how lame is that? They can also block the very pages you're looking for. Not a good idea.
And the worst part, getting the pages.
Like we said before, you're here on the streets to find pages to play the minigames. Problem is, the pages for the most part show up randomly. This means you could pretty much be walking around for a long time doing a whole lot of nothing. Just wandering the street, hoping, praying, that a paper appears out of thin air.
Why did they have to make it so hard to access these minigames? Why does the page disappear if you fail? Why can't you just retry that minigame until you quit? Why do you have to be on the street for so long? Why are the pages so hard to find? Why does it take so long just to get to the next minigame?
Oh, they're not good. But as bad as they are, the Super Nintendo game is definitely slower.
Let's look at the Itchy and Scratchy levels. Look how fast you're able to attack on Sega. That's awesome! And look how slow you attack on Super Nintendo. It makes my level more difficult. You're open to attacks more often, especially the instant kill attacks. And not only that, on Sega, you can stay in one place when you attack. For some annoying reason, you constantly move forward on Super Nintendo.
No way! My game is definitely slower.
You move faster on the Super Nintendo Street level. The controls are just a little tighter.
Oh, my street level totally has you beat.
In both games, when you're one hit away from dying, the screen goes to white, like we said before. On Sega, you can still see everything clearly, enemies and your HUD. Makes it easier to survive. On Super Nintendo, everything is blurry on the top and bottom of the screens. Makes it harder to spot enemies, makes it harder to get life, and I can't even see the HUD. How are you supposed to survive at this point? It's like they just want you to die. It's so much better on Sega.
And another reason your street level is better, the skateboard.
Like we said before, the skateboard can extend your life bar and give you full life. How much it does this depends on how long you're on the board. The skateboard is much better on Sega. You don't have to stay on the board that long. It fills up and extends pretty quickly. Not on Super Nintendo. It takes a lot longer to fill up and even longer to extend. It's much easier to stay alive on the Sega game due to the skateboard.
Oh, my game is definitely worse, and I'm not even done yet. Let's talk about the Slowdown.
The Super Nintendo game is plagued with slowdown. This is noticeable in the Itchy and Scratchy levels, but it's worse in the Bart Man stage. You experience slowdown on the Super Nintendo level practically the whole time you play. Makes it so tedious to get through, especially compared to the Sega game, which has no slowdown at all. There's that blast processing working for you.
I don't think there's any denying it. My gameplay is definitely worse.
For having a slower Itchy and Scratchy level, an obstructed view while near death, worst skateboard, and terrible slowdown, worst gameplay goes to Super Nintendo.
Even though both games are bad, one's worse. And that is Bart's Nightmare. For the Super Nintendo.
It has worse graphics for ugly clouds, no Maggie pacifier animation, blurry near-death screen, and no shadow. Its presentation and sound are better for including more elements, but it's not enough to make up for the poor gameplay. It's slower than the Sega game, it's harder to see than the Sega game, the skateboard isn't as good, and it has slowdown. All these problems make it more difficult to play. Not like the Sega game is good, it's just a little better than the Super Nintendo version. Both games are bad, but one is worse. Worst Simpsons Bart's Nightmare goes to Super Nintendo.
Okay, so what do I do now? How do I get the missing pages of the script?
Okay, so you just fall asleep. You'll find the missing pages in your dreams.
Alright. Here I go. Am I dreaming? Oh yeah, I'm dreaming.
Hey,
Hey, you're here. That's weird.
what's so weird about it? We're just having the same dream, Inception style.
Oh, true. Let's find this script.
Yeah, actually.
No, I know. Just let me finish, okay? This thing could be anywhere, so we're gonna have to keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell
Right,
you.
and I'm trying to tell you that everything out of here is gonna try to stop us. It could be anything over that way. Something could jump out of that mailbox. I saw a guy over there who was just like...
Found it.
Really? That was easy. Let's wake up.
Well, how's about a celebratory high five first?
High five.
Whoa, did I hit something back there? Nah, probably just my overactive imagination. Time to listen to some more tunes.
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to Bubba Ace for his donation of both games. And if there's a game you guys want to see us review, leave it in the comments below and we will get to it. Also, check us out on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more console wars goodness. Later.
I don't get it either. You're not even touching them. Why?